Well, looking at Journ here, I'd say he's pretty damn cool looking. He's part rock, part dwarf, part dime store hustler. As much as he loves all his goodies in the game, coming with a big old Eye of Sauron kind of staff, flamethrower, which comes into effect in his kit. Dude looks pretty cool. And despite how cool he looks, he was actually my first champion, and I was rather upset when I pulled him. I wasn't too happy because at the time I was looking for damage for a Vortex team. This was even before I pulled Erich, or honestly even before I was really too sure how to build a Vortex team. But I know I wanted damage. And I got him, and I was upset. I was mad. If you guys ever been on any of my streams, by the way, link in the description. Feel free to come join. You guys know that I tend to game with Zuzu Game Time, old raid creator, and I griped at him forever when I pulled him. I was like, oh my god, I was on a banner looking for someone else, blah blah blah, so mad. Now he is literally one of my favorite champions. Any team that I can put him in, I put him in because his kit is wild. He really does a lot. Starting with his ultimate, we've got a diamond shaped AoE. It's second, third largest AoE, so really nice size on it. 500% attack and 10% max HP. So as a proper support champion, build him a little tanky to help his damage a little bit. He's not really here for the damage though. Inside the enemies that do get hit by this diamond, they also get their ultimate energy reduced by 25%. In arena, it's very helpful. In bosses, it's become almost essential to help me with building my champions out and timing and all of that. Really utilize the most out of this skill. On top of that, it has a 75 once booked up 100% chance of dispelling all their buffs. This is massive as well. You're talking about the Grave of Curse, the Blood Prince, and champions like that, where you can get rid of all their buffs. It's not one, it's not two, it's not random. It's all of their buffs. 100% chance. Very nice, very solid. Once booked, it goes to a 20-second cooldown. I've got him a little bit of skill haste here to kind of help him out. Looking at his battle skill, he has actually rather large AoE, the 3 rows wave kind of thing. Flamethrower that sprays flames that burn enemies within range 5 times each. That's important. I'll get to it in a minute. But 5 times on an AoE like this, on a battle skill, that's a Lego level. And his mods are 50% attack and 2% max HP. So, 250 attack and 10% max HP. Pretty solid mod there. It's nothing crazy. It doesn't do insane damage, but it's pretty solid. With a 50 once booked, 75% chance of inflicting attack penalty 2 for 5 seconds. Each one of these has a 75% chance of proccing. He pretty much lands it exclusively all the time in these 3 rows, every champion that's in it for show. As long as you got solid amount of accuracy on him. But on top of that, and keep in mind, it's only 5 seconds. It is a battle skill, so it's not, the long term, what I would qualify as an actual decreased attack champion. 10 seconds, 100% chance on ultimate. That's about all you're going to get from a decreased attack champion. But he's a very good backup decreased attack champion. Very nice. On top of that, this is kind of the tricky part that can throw people off. The flames also backfire on the hero each time, dealing moderate, little amount of attack and HP mods, fire damage. That matters too, on himself. All right, now that dealing fire damage to himself is actually very important because it will proc off his passive off of his own battle skill. His passive is the hero takes 30% less fire damage, so the damage he does to himself is mitigated. But additionally, when the hero takes fire damage, there's a 30% chance of recharging his ultimate energy, and that is surrounding allies by 10% and granting defense up to the hero and surrounding allies for 5 seconds. Now, it doesn't seem huge, but especially in certain areas, like arena where speed can matter, or in long form battles like Vortex and such, this triggers pretty consistently, and it can really add up in the amount of turns and ultimates that your team gets off. Now, this effect can only be triggered once every 5 seconds. To be honest, in arena especially, though, that turn meter increase feels so clutch that I swear this thing procs off more than once every 5 seconds, or more than once per ally every time he does his flamethrower. But I guess it just procs off once in those cases. Either way, it feels that necessary to the point to where it is very, very nice and useful. As far as his kit goes, he has a theme, man. It's ultimate manipulation, and that's what he's good for. Between increasing himself and his allies' ultimate, decreasing the enemy ultimate by 25%, which again is extremely helpful on boss fights and getting your timing right. Decreased attack, AoE, rather large. Dispelling all the enemy buffs, man. His kit it's jam-packed full of things. And his mods ain't too bad. He can do a moderate little amount of damage. For a support champion, he does very nice damage. Especially when you compare it to, a lot of these other more support heavy like Hexandra or Bikuck or whatever, any of those. He does a lot more damage than the healers. But all in all, he's good. Now, why don't we go ahead and we're going to hop on over to Arena and we can show you him at work. Alright, so here we are in Arena. I rolled around trying to look for some mid-level to, regular upper-level opponents. I am almost top 10 in my server, so everyone I face, they've got some really heavy rosters. But I landed on these three, so let's see how we do. We're going to go ahead and jump in the first one here. Now, the way that I got my team set up, and if you are from Raid Shadow Legends or played really a lot of these gachas, you'll know about the speed meta. It's all about getting your champions to hit first, hit fast, and hopefully hit hard enough to cripple the enemy team, and then you can proceed to, finish them off, of course, unless you one-shot them. In Dragonair, I've kind of made a similar team. I've got Journ here. Remember, his battle skill, which is only on a 4.4 second initial cast time, 3 rows, AoE, 5 times, attack penalty, and with the potential option, and it usually does proc, of increasing the ultimate energy and casting defense up to on surrounding allies. So that's more or less the effect that we have here. We're trying to AoE, decrease attack, so that way we can enable Sigrid here to do her damage. She's our DPS in this team. And get her to, cast her skill as quickly as possible, as well as, defense up. And honestly, he will increase his own turn meter and even be able to pop off his ultimate, where he will do a little damage, reduce the enemy turn meter, and dispel all the enemy buffs. So really, really great support for Arena with the turn meter increase, decrease, tack down. It brings everything, man. So with him, what I usually like to do is I like to find a back row that has 2 of their, high-profile champions or DPSs usually within a 3-row radius, and I plop him right in the middle row of that. So that way, his decreased attack, lands on both of them, and then I put the rest of my team all on one side, so it'll drag their melee champions into Journ's battle skill. So that way, as many champions as possible gets decreased attack, and Sigrid can pop that off. We also have Lola in here, who has a chance of silencing and stunning, another diamond-shaped decreased attack, and she's got a triple hit ultimate, so she's my Witch's Remains, my decreased defense champion. So
a few moments later.
Alright, we'll try our last team down here. This will be the last one I show. Clearly I need to work on my arena team, but I swear, damn it, Journ does what he's supposed to do. Here's our 2 we're going to target, so we'll plop Journ in the middle, Sigrid and Lola around him, the rest of the tanks down here, so that way they can draw all the melees in. Oh, he's a melee, so he's going to run in anyways. Oof, probably would have been smarter to square up on Nathan, then he can, or Nathaniel. He can make these Gariuses just last forever. But there we go. We got the activation from Journ, and then you just seen Sigrid nuke. Wasn't able to take Tamar down back here. Almost took down their Garius though. That's very nice. We've got our sustain in here. Try and reset. Boom, boom. We was able to take Tamar down and Garius immediately right after, and then Nathan. I'm glad I could show you one that worked. And to be honest, this team, even up at the upper end where I'm at, this team does relatively okay, even on defense. I run the same team on defense. All right, so Here is the Vortex team. As you can tell, Journ is the centerpiece of my Vortex team as well. We really want to take advantage of that increased turn ultimate energy on his passive. Honestly, I've tried to replace him with other wild champions, other support champions, mixing things up in my team. My damage always drops without Journ in it. It's not supposed to be that big of a deal, but it is. But anyways, as you can tell in the build, I've got him 3 ears. I find that he runs a really good support role here. I also got an artifact to increase his speed because due to the fact that he's in 3 ears, I got him on rotation with another champion that has 3 ears, so that way we can keep 100% uptime on the increased attack buff. But I still have as much skill haste on him as I could possibly get because I want this battle skill to proc off as often as possible. So he's pretty much just in here purely for his battle skill, and then to be another 3 ears champion to keep that uptime on that increased attack buff. So what he does in here, I run a wild team, Tonalyn, Erich, Fur Bath for the heals, and then Crisis here is for shields and my second decreased attack champion. So I got them all comboed here. It's a pretty well fine-tuned team. I do, with a neutral buff, I do about 30 million. With a proper, good buff that's in my favor, I can probably do 35 to 40 million. And I swear on everything, without Journ, my damage always drops to 25, maybe even under 25 million. Without him, it's so crazy. I do have him built with a little bit of attack. I pretty much try to have my 3 non-tanky champions to kind of all die at the same time. I increase their defense as much as possible without losing damage, and just kind of dial everyone back to about that level. But Journ in here, his ultimate's popping off with Crisis, and so that way their ultimates go together. Crisis is a decreased attack champion. Journ is an increased attack buff champion, and then Fur Bath is actually in the other 3 ears set, and he's the other decreased attack champion. So I have them on a 20-second rotation. They each have 10-second buffs and debuffs that they apply, and I want them to all rotate. So he's a really good support champion to kind of fit in there, knowing you're going to increase the efficiency of your damage dealers, as well as being able to pair for the 3 ears sets, or decrease attack if you find yourself not having a second legitimate decreased attack champion. He does have decreased attack that lands pretty consistently. I don't have him in accuracy in this build because I don't need his decreased attack or anything else. I try to just kind of pump up his damage, his sustain a little bit, and then his skill haste while having those proper sets. As you can tell, he's about half of a mid-build Erich. I don't build Erich for damage. He's built as my decreased defense champion, so I leave a lot of damage off the table by throwing in accuracy. But he rocks about half of what Erich does, which isn't bad for a non-damage damage main champion. Now just so that way we can see the general stats of the team, and particularly what Journ does and brings. I'm gonna speed this up a little bit, but we'll probably just end up cutting to the end, and we'll see the stats and everything at the end. Okay, as you can see here, of course, Tonalyn, Erich manning up more than 80% of the damage. They're the damage combo. That's what they're in there for. But in comparison, Journ doing a nice little 3.4 million. That's solid enough on anyone's team, especially as a support champion. If you compare it to the other support / tanks, 1.8 from Crisis, and he actually has a pretty hard hitting ultimate, and 735k from Furbath, who of course isn't built for damage at all, but having a champion that kind of brings a lot in their kit and still can do 10, 11, 12, 15% of the damage, not bad. I'm really happy with him. Like I said, I cannot replace him. I cannot. Now let's go ahead and look at some champ builds, and I'll show you kind of the different ways you can build him. To show you kind of some of the builds that I do use for him, right now I had him in the Vortex Boss, which is my 3 ears build. I still crank out some skill haste, try and get his defense up to a moderate amount so he survives just as long as at least the DPSs, because after that your damage is kind of set. You ain't gonna squeeze much more out if your DPSs go down. And I crank up his attack and crit rate as much as possible just to squeeze out that little bit of extra attack. I would say that these are really good numbers for, an average accounts attack and crit rate type of situation. Little crit damage on there. Um, and I have a pretty well-rounded build on here, but leaning a little more towards damage. Some of the other builds that I use is in Arena. The Arena build that I use is actually a hasted build. Um, unless you're facing a high resist tank, you usually ain't going to see much resist, so I don't really tend to worry too much about accuracy. This is supposed to be an accuracy accuracy gem here, though. We'll do that one right there. The attack, I think that's supposed to be attack with 18 skill haste. All right, yeah, so we're good there. And with this, I usually put him. You know what? I don't remember. I think I use Candle. Either the Candle or the Eyeball sometimes if I want to pump a little more damage at him. But for now, we'll go ahead and throw the Burner on him. Give him a nice little bit more accuracy, and help you come back around to his ultimate skill again. But as far as the main stats in his gear, for Arena in particular, I usually just go, full on attack, try and bust up as much damage to set up Sigurd as possible. Pump a little bit of, or plenty of accuracy into him, and that's kind of where I just go. I want to make sure that I land his decrease attack, and his his ultimate reduction. Get rid of any buffs that the enemy has, stuff like that. Just pump him up with some solid accuracy, skill haste out the wazoo. I really wish that I had the hourglass here. That would make him just insane. And spit out as much attack as possible. Accuracy, attack, plenty of accuracy, crit rate subs. Little sustain don't hurt, but mainly just leaning on that accuracy as much as possible. So that would be my 3 years build for things like Vortex and bosses, the haste build for Arena, and then I threw together a little mid build here. Of course, I had to not really level. I used unleveled gear and stuff, but I figured I'd at least try and show the levels. If I remember right, I had both of these off and the harp on. For a mid-level build, so say you're farming epic gear, you're coming up, your champions might be at around, level 90, 5-star maybe not, whatever. I figured that this would probably be an appropriate level for Journ at that level. At that point in time, you really don't want to crank up his attack much. This is a little even on the heavier side for attack. I would probably lean more on sustain, as well as cranking as much accuracy as possible. From what I remember in the early to mid game kind of thing, 220 was a good level. That's where you're affecting most, if not all, the dungeon bosses and things like that. You do want to get a little bit of skill haste. I don't have any runes on him to kind of simulate the lack of skill haste on the runes, and accuracy. I find that the harp is really good, especially if he's not booked, because you don't have a 100% chance of the dispelling the buffs. You do have a 100% chance on reducing the ultimate, but not on the buffs. So the harp will add, I think it's 15% additional chance to proc that, as well as give you accuracy. So the harp is real good. You could also go with something in the spear. I'll talk about the artifacts in a minute, but mainly accuracy, main stats, sustain where you can get it. That's pretty much gonna be about it. If you're mid gameish, I would definitely make sure not to pump up his attack too much, because if you're doing the longer fights and relying a lot more on champions being somewhat self-sustained, you don't want him doing too much damage to himself. So definitely keep that in mind. As far as artifacts go, it kind of depends on how you're using him, but it kind of don't. When it comes down to it, him just rotating his skills as fast as possible is the way to go. So for legendary, and I don't have it, but I wish I had it, for legendary artifacts, you want the hourglass. I believe it doubles, once maxed out, it doubles their the skill haste, as well as does some other crazy funky stuff. Just double the skill haste. That's all we care about, to pump out those skills as much as possible. On the epic level, I really like the incense burner for the accuracy, as well as helping him rotate around to his ultimate energy. But on that same note, you can do the candle, which I'm starting to think that I might want to resist build him in Arena, so that might be happening for the Lucians that want to come up and freeze me all the time. as well as after after your champion launches his battle skill, the recharge time will be reduced by 10%. Now, unfortunately, with his cooldown timer, it's really not that much. So you get 0.9 off of that. That'll put you closer to an 8-second than a 9-second. Every second counts, I guess, but it ain't that huge. But I do tend to like the burner for the accuracy and the reset. And if you really are leaning on his battle skill, put this in there. I would say if you don't, for some reason, have either one of those or they're occupied by another champion and you need some accuracy, the Flame Orb, especially when he's not booked, is really good. You can get a 20% proc chance on that ultimate, which would be 95%. Really solid. You can get close to that 100% on removing of the buffs, as well as provide solid accuracy for you. So it wouldn't be it's not my number one pick, but if you need it, you need it. As far as the rare artifacts goes, in my opinion, there's only 2 real options for him. You could do something like this to, increase some attack coming out of him if you really wanted to go that route. But I would highly suggest the Harp for the accuracy, and inflicting buffs, debuffs on the ultimate skill for the 15%, or even the Spear if your Harp's not available, pretty much just for the accuracy. I don't think that this affects him doing fire damage to himself, the backfire, so I don't think it's going to affect the proc chance of the turn meter increase either, so there really ain't much effect to that, but when you need the accuracy, you need the accuracy. Alright, so like I said, he was my first Lego. Wasn't too happy to get him, but I've changed my mind. Dude, he's such an awesome champion. He's such a great champion that when I was like, man, I'm gonna start doing videos on Dragonair. He was top of my list of champions I wanted to pull out. As far as I'm concerned, he's an S tier champion. An S tier champion. I didn't know that at the time, but this dude's just so useful everywhere. You know what I mean? If you have a slot for a support champion, I definitely put him in it. Plus, looks cool. I dig his vibe. Little crazy dude who shoots flames out everywhere. You can't be mad at that. If you enjoyed this, you found it informative, you know what to do to help support, the channel, show some love. I will be coming out with new champions here new champion guides, as well as boss guides and other things like that. I'm a real technical content creator, I used to do some stuff on Raid, but now I'm getting into Dragonair, so it's time to break some things down and help out the community. So, till next time, happy grinding.